Late one night, a woman woke up feeling restless. When she turned around, she froze. Her husband was holding someone else in his arms, and that someone was her own aunt. The aunt immediately pulled away, realizing how wrong it was. But the woman stood there, shocked, watching everything fall apart. From their whispers, she learned the truth. Her husband had married her only to get close to her aunt. All those nights they'd tried to have a baby, he wanted a child that looked like the aunt. Even the name he'd chosen for their future baby carried her aunt's memory. Her heart broke. Everything she'd believed in felt like a lie. People always said they were the perfect couple. Her husband was 10 years older, but he treated her so well. Caring, patient, always saying yes to her every wish. Each night, he'd talk softly to her, making her believe she'd found the perfect man. But that perfect man never really existed. The illusion shattered the day her father died. She called her husband again and again. He ignored every call. Then, her best friend abroad sent her a photo. In it, her husband was smiling, holding her aunt close, like two people deeply in love. Still, she hoped it was some mistake. She went into the study, a room he'd never allowed her to enter. What she saw made her stomach turn. The walls were covered with photos of her husband and her aunt together. 3 years of marriage, and she never knew. Then she found his journal. The words inside confirmed everything. Her happy marriage had been nothing more than a carefully built lie. 3 days later, he came back from overseas, acting guilty, pretending to care, begging for forgiveness. But she didn't say a word. She simply placed 2 papers on the table, the divorce papers and a consent form for abortion. Without hesitation, he signed them both. She went to the hospital the next morning, determined that neither she nor her child would ever be used as tools in someone else's twisted love story. Days later, the aunt returned from abroad. Only then did she realize her niece's husband was her ex-boyfriend. She greeted him like a stranger. He played along. The wife, knowing everything, stayed silent, just waiting for the 30-day divorce period to end. One evening, they all sat down for dinner. A waiter accidentally spilled a bowl of hot soup, burning both the wife and the aunt. The husband panicked, but only for the aunt. He grabbed her hand and rushed to the hospital, completely ignoring his wife's blistered skin. The aunt's guilt grew heavier. She went to visit the wife to apologize, but as she reached out, the wife lost balance, almost fell. The aunt caught her just in time, but slipped herself and hit the ground hard. When the wife woke up in the hospital, the doctor told her, "If you weren't this strong, you'd be in a coma right now." 2 days later, she went home. Her husband apologized again, but this time, she didn't believe a single word. She packed her bags. Just then, her uncle called. The aunt's kidneys were failing, and no one's transplant matched. Her husband dragged her for testing. 3 days later, she learned her kidneys didn't match either, but someone else's did. Later, she overheard the truth, that someone was her husband. On the day of his surgery, she handed him a small gift box. Inside were the divorce certificate and the abortion report. He barely looked at it, said he was flying out for a month, and left it with his assistant. As he was rolled into the operating room, the woman quietly took off her wedding ring, picked up her suitcase, and walked away from the city without looking back.